Today is the first Sunday of the Great Fast. On this Sunday, we celebrate the triumph of Orthodoxy. We commemorate how the faithful in the Orthodox Church in the 9th century finally overcame iconoclasm, the struggle of the heretics who fought against the veneration of icons. The struggle lasted for several decades. People were killed, monasteries were closed, churches were destroyed. But in the end, truth prevailed over falsehood. And every year we celebrate this on the first Sunday of the fast. And to correspond with that, we read from the Gospel of John, the opening chapter, how the disciples were called to follow Jesus. And today's scene is a remarkable scene. Philip tells Nathanael, finally, we've come and we saw the Messiah. We have to understand that the Jewish nation for millennia, for hundreds of years, were waiting for the Messiah, waiting to be delivered. So you can imagine the joy that Philip felt when he told Nathanael, he's here. And Nathanael asks, how do I know that it is him? And Philip says, come and see. So he went, and he saw, and he followed Jesus. He, like the other disciples, we have to remember what they did. They left their families. They left their jobs, their livelihood, their careers. You know, nowadays, people are more willing to divorce rather than to lose their career. But these disciples left everything in order to follow Jesus. What did they see? What did they feel in order to do that? What moved them? They saw God in the flesh. They saw the Christ, the anointed Messiah, promised to Israel for many, many years. They saw the fulfillment of all the prophecies and the law of Judaism. And they also saw love. They saw peace. They heard teachings that they never heard before. And they just didn't stand there and receive things from Jesus. They gave them of themselves. For 3 years they followed him. They went through all kinds of difficulties. Yesterday we read from the Gospel of Mark how they were going through a field plucking wheat in order to eat. They were hungry. They went through hunger and thirst, cold and heat, all kinds of animosity from their neighbors and friends because this Jesus was disturbing everything. His teaching was revolutionary. But they held firm and followed him. They gave their hearts to him. That's why Jesus says, you believe only because I saw you under the fig tree, he tells Nathanael. You will come and see even greater things than these. And many saints after the disciples, after the apostles, likewise came and saw. They saw great things. They were moved to do marvelous feats. People lived in deserts. People endured sufferings, were martyred for their faith. People sold everything that they had People lived very righteous lives. People loved God with all their hearts. We see all this in all the icons and the saints. We read about them. Every day the Orthodox Church commemorates a list of saints every single day of the year. There are so many. What moved these people to do great things? They were all touched by God because they came and they saw. But they came and saw and gave. They gave of their hearts. They gave from their souls. They offered sacrifices. Our faith, brothers and sisters, the Holy Orthodox faith, is not a collection of doctrine. It's not just that. Nor is it just a philosophy for life. Our Holy Orthodox faith is a way of life, so that we can have a true saving relationship with God. We in the church believe there is no other way, there's no better way to have this than in the church. Our church teaches us to pray, to fast, reminds us of all the commandments of God, stands firm in the truth, regardless of what changes around us, provides for us the path of salvation so that we may not be led astray. And what do we need to do to receive all this? We just have to look at today's gospel reading, at what the disciples did. They came and saw and they gave. You know, the Russian word for parishioner is prikhajan. It's taken from a word to come, prikhadit. And in Russian, if you add a prefix, it changes the meaning of the word. So pri means to come. So a parishioner is someone who comes and sees, but actually comes completely with him or herself. You change the prefix and the word becomes a different meaning. Instead of pri, you add za. Zachadit. It means just to stop in. Many times, we just stop in to see God. We stop in when we have a need. We stop in when things are difficult. We stop in when it's convenient. But when things are good, when there are no difficulties, and it's inconvenient, we don't stop in. A marriage, brothers and sisters, between a husband and a wife is fruitful because both the husband and wife love each other every single day. They support each other every single day. They sacrifice for each other every single day. They sacrifice completely of themselves every single day. Everyone who's married 30, 40, 50 years knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's a vibrant relationship that's nourished every day. And it's nourished every day because they're in the marriage not to receive, but to give. Many times when we approach God, we only approach God to receive. What do we give? Our Lord asks of us sacrifice. A sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken and a contrite heart. He asks of us humility, love, devotion. He asks of us to sacrifice of ourselves. He asks of us to carry our cross, to deny our own will. He asks of us to follow His commandments. He says, if you love me, you will follow my commandments. So we give to God many things in return. And these things we don't give Him because we want to earn salvation. Salvation cannot be earned. It's given freely. We are saved by faith and grace. But we give of ourselves as Christ commands us. Just like a husband and wife give to each other. So we don't stop in. If we just stop in, we will never understand the saints. We will look at them as ideals or even fables. And there are many Christians nowadays who do that. Look at the saints and their lives and call them just legends. Even St. Nicholas. But when we come, truly come and see, we understand. And so the great fast is before us, so that we can come and see. The great fast is before us so that we can change our lives, so we can no longer just stop in and see God, but come and see, and come with sacrifice, come with our hearts, come with our souls, come with all of our strength, because Christ tells us, love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, and with all your soul. And love your neighbor completely. Love your neighbor as yourself. When we give of all of this, then we come to understand the saints. Then we come to understand how today's disciples, Peter, or Philip, Nathaniel, Andrew, and Peter, and all the other disciples, how they can sacrifice so much, because truly they came and they saw, and they gave in return. Because the joy that they felt, because the fulfillment that they received was far greater than anything in this world could ever give them. And so before us, the great fast, we strive to make little changes in our life to draw closer to that ideal, so that we can become more patient, more loving, more forgiving, more sacrificial, more understanding, and ultimately more faithful to God. And we just don't do that with the decision. It's an ongoing effort for us of praying and fasting, and not just a few days or a week or two, but the entire great fast. Everyone wants fulfillment. We all want to feel joy. We all want to feel complete. Look at the world around us, how it's crying out. Look and see all the struggles and the thirst of people. Look deep in your own hearts and see what you're longing for. It's a natural human trait. But when we direct this longing to God, we're satisfied. Christ told the Samaritan woman, You ask of me water, from which you will still thirst, but I will give you waters of living grace, from which you will never thirst again. Life then becomes meaningful. Life then becomes full and joyful, regardless of the craziness of the world. Let us, brothers and sisters, keep this fast and draw closer to God. Let us, brothers and sisters, give of ourselves, change our life. Truly, let us come and see. Amen.